Hey, well, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We've got people joining us today from Armidale, Tamworth, Taree, Parramatta and Greater Sydney. So just as I mentioned, please be on mute. And if you have any questions, you think of questions during the talk this morning, if you want to pop them into the chat, and we'll put those to the panel during the Q&A session after both of the speakers have presented. So I just want to do our acknowledgement of country. So appreciating that we're connecting virtually, this means we're on the different traditional country of many groups. For those of you attending today who are in Parramatta and Sydney, we acknowledge the Rodrigues people and the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, which extends from the Sydney coastline to the foothills of the Blue Mountains. I would also like to extend this respect to anyone on the call today who is Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, and to elders past, present and emerging. The University of New England values and respects Indigenous knowledge systems as a vital part of the knowledge capital of Australia. And we'd like to share, celebrate and acknowledge the ongoing contribution of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture and history to the community of the Greater Sydney and for our attendees regions today in our discussions. I'd like to introduce our facilitator today, Dr. Donna Hewitt. So Donna is a vocalist, composer, instrumentalist, designer and academic. So Donna specialises in electronic composition, music production and performance, and her creative practice explores new ways of interfacing the human body and the voice with electronic media. She's also an inventor and entrepreneur. She's an inventor of the e-mic, a sensor-enhanced microphone stand for electronic music performance. And more recently, she's been creating wearable electronics for controlling both sound and lighting in performance. Her work's been featured as part of the Vivid Festival, the Bondi Feast Festival, the Music and Technologies Conference in Canada. She's performed her works in Tokyo, at the Convergence Music Festival, Technology and Ideas in the UK, and she's currently a collaborator on a 5-year project funded by Canada's Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. Donna's held academic positions at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music, QUT, and Donna's currently the head of Department of Creative Arts and Communications at UNE. So good morning, Donna. Over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Rob. I'd like to introduce our first speaker today, which is Michael Rodrigues. Michael launched the Time Out brand in Australia under license in 2007. Can you hear me all right? I'm just wondering if I need to turn my mic up a bit.
I can hear
you. It launched the Time Out brand in 2007. And in that time, at the helm, grew the audience across print, digital and social channels to in excess of 1 million Australians monthly. In recent years, and prompted by the challenges facing Sydney's nighttime economy, he launched and chaired the Nighttime Industries Association, which was instrumental in lifting the lockout laws and shaping the State of New South Wales 24-hour economy strategy. In February 2021, Michael was announced as New South Wales' inaugural 24-hour Economy Commissioner, a role he commenced on the 29th of March in 2021. So a fun fact about Mike before I hand over is Mike worked as a trainee civil engineer for Leeton contractors on the Homebush Bay rail link in the lead up to the 2000 Games. So I'll hand over to Michael now, but don't forget to pop your questions into the chat while Michael's speaking. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me join you. And I join you today from Gadigal country, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I think I welcome the opportunity because it's a challenging time for businesses, especially those that comprise the going out economy. And I think the least we can do at this time is to kind of engage in discussion and please, my minister would encourage me to get any feedback, because part of my role is really to ensure that there's good levels of communication when it comes to relief efforts and the recovery which should follow. So just bear that in mind and raise questions as we go in the chat as Rob and Donna have invited you to. So this is just a bit of a top level overview on 24-hour economy, and I think it's an emerging area. That's, I think, the first thing I want to say about it. And so it's kind of being developed and characterized as we go. And New South Wales is one of the few, I think it's the only state government globally that actually has a 24-hour economy strategy, which is probably a little nod to our history. And as Donna touched on in my introduction, it is framed by that. And for those who have followed the discussion for a little while, you recall that we had the lockout intervention, and that was in 2014, and since that time, I guess Sydney's had a good long hard look at itself around why that intervention was necessary and the consequences of it. And I guess I wanted to kind of just use that as a bit of a reference point, because it frames up and explains a little bit of how the New South Wales government strategy has been shaped. And one of the lessons from lockout was, of course, if you take a whole bunch of people and funnel them into a couple of areas of the city and get them to do one type of activity, then it may result in adverse consequences. And I think that what happened that followed was really a series of government inquiries, and then I guess the realization that there was a foregone economic opportunity as a result of that intervention. And then that led to a formulation of a government strategy during the course of 2021 that was shaped by local councils in conjunction with industry and government, and was published in September last year. And my appointment was in March this year. It pointed to deliver that strategy for New South Wales. And the headline that came out, I think Deloitte put the economic impact of being $16.1 billion of foregone economic activity annually just in Greater Sydney. So it's a significant amount of money. And it kind of really does reflect why we talk about 24-hour economy. What is 24-hour economy about? Well, really it's about the ability for an asset like a city to trade in a more flexible manner to allow greater economic activity and also social amenity for its citizens and visitors. So, if Minister Ayres was here, the minister I report into, he'd say in the current context, we've taken on a truckload of debt, and we need to create new industries and new jobs to repay that debt. Speaking of trucks, it's a good metaphor, really. Like if you owned a trucking company, you'd want trucks on the road 24 hours a day. If you've got a city, why would you only run that for 8 hours a day? And so there's a lot of misconceptions around 24-hour economy, nighttime economy, these words. And oftentimes we associate them with, I guess, late night activity. But really, my job is to try and extract more value out of the day as a whole. And in particular, looking at those twilight hours into early evening. And one of the great ironies for me, particularly coming from my background, which for those of you who can see me, I'm of Indian heritage, and going to bed at 10 o'clock is not what people from my culture tend to do. 10 o'clock, things are just getting going. That's in a hot climate, you tend to go out later in the evening, and so there's a bit of a shift, and this shift is happening globally as we start thinking about how to extract more value out of our city assets. And don't we understand that now in context where well, I mean, to be honest, I'd just be grateful for any economy. In the current context, it's quite hard with our going out sector under hard lockdown. And so, the more flexible we are on reopening and the better regulation we have to facilitate business, the sooner our economy can get back up on its feet. So I just wanted to tease out a couple of key points from the strategy. It's publicly available. And I think that we can circulate the link in the chat for those who want to read it. And I could sit here and tell you there's 39 action points and 5 strategic pillars, but I really want to sort of get to the heart of what the strategy is about. And there's a really good concept in the strategy, and it's referred to as the neon grid. And what the neon grid is a metaphor for how Sydney could light up after hours, telling in different colours. And why different colours? Well, Sydney has a diversity of stories to tell. And the story of Parramatta is distinct from the story of Campbelltown, where I went to school. It's distinct from the story of Newtown, near whereby I live, and also Sydney City. And I guess so that neon grid is a really good metaphor for storytelling. And it also explains our role as state government. And I know Gisela from Parramatta City Council is going to come on and speak afterwards, because there's different roles for different actors to play. So at a really top level, this neon grid is my job is to help the neon grid light up and to tell these different stories. And it's why an opportunity to engage with friends and colleagues from Parramatta is so important. I've been out 3 or 4 times when I was allowed already in my appointment, and spoken in various forums, dinners, and chambers, and met the mayor and the economic development team at Parramatta City Council, because we need to be working in partnership to tell the great stories of Parramatta. And I Parramatta is important to I guess the strategy for another reason, because it is really seen, I think, as a beacon for the Greater West, and its leadership around 24-hour economy is really quite important, to set an example, a relatable example for how other councils can embrace 24-hour economy strategy and thinking. So going back to that neon grid concept, that's quite core to the 24-hour economy strategy. Now, using that metaphor with the light bulb and the different colours, if there was an element in that light bulb, it would be purple. And why purple? Well, if you think back to Sydney's history in terms of, I guess it's colonial history, that is, if you study its nightlife, it tends to swing from prohibition to decadence every 20 years. And really, like, we should learn from this and ensure that we don't see a revision back to the challenges that the lockout intervention created. And so purple is a reference to the purple flag concept, which is a notion that's been popularized in the UK. And what it is an accreditation scheme run by the Association of Town Centre Management for what good going out looks like. And it's all the things. It's safe, diverse, good access in and out, and a good consumer experience. And so these purple flag districts is something that the strategy envisages, and the creation of them as part of that neon grid really is the core function and the core deliverable under the strategy. And you can see now in that context, how do these, where are the districts? What stories do they tell? And I like using Harris Park again, close to home for you there, and also dear to my heart and my belly. In fact, I may have lost a few kilos during this latest lockdown as a result of not being able to stop in there regularly for dinner. But, the story of Harris Park is a clear story for Sydney. It's just quite different to, what we sometimes see Sydney portrayed on the world stage. And it's those types of districts that we want to be teased out and to tell a wider story for Sydney. And there are many others besides, Howden Street, Lakemba is another example, and there are more. So I guess those key concepts: the neon grid, how Sydney lights up at night, underpinned by purple flag, good going out districts. There's I don't know if I should try and share. I might share my screen in a minute or two and just give you an example of one district that we've taken an active interest in. And in shaping as part of the 24-hour economy strategy in the last few months, as a bit of a test case for what might be possible for Greater Sydney. But I want to just come back to those core elements of the strategy. Neon grid, I've talked about. Purple flag, a rating scheme for what good districts look like, and then who are all the actors that we need to bring together. So, and I'm sort of assuming, I'm new to government, I should say, as you probably can understand. And what I've worked out, it is a big place. I think the New South Wales government employs over 400,000 people. And there are about 10 different government departments, including multiple teams that have an interest in the going out economy. And so think through transport, you have to get to places, think through planning, think through police, customer service, Destination New South Wales, and so forth. And so my job largely is a coordinating function within New South Wales government, and then working with councils all across Sydney. And it's wonderful that we've got a good, productive relationship with our Parramatta City Council already on the go. So we've been meeting reasonably regularly. And lastly, industry is the third part. So the role that particularly those businesses that participate in the nighttime economy have are so essential. You might be wondering, what does the 24-hour economy commissioner do during lockdown? Well, what we've been up to is really fulfilling our role as an internal advocate for the going out economy within government. And so our work's been focused on the relief mechanisms that government's been implementing, and trying to make sure that the policy objectives of government are being achieved by having the relief flow through to the affected businesses, and that the relief measures are appropriately calibrated. And as I said, if there's any feedback on that, please feel free to drop it in the chat, and I can either answer questions or take it back to colleagues within government. So the relief has been a big focus for us in the last few months. And then, of course, thinking about recovery. And of course, as we look to hopefully a brighter future for the sector, we're thinking about the use of public space a lot. Our fresco dining becomes important, particularly coming into summer. We understand the importance of making sure businesses are capable of trading to full potential. And we're also conscious of making sure that there is thought given to how relief might continue as industry tries to get back up on its feet. So I guess I'm just sort of conscious of time, but that was the core overview of what I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to, I think, pass over to Gisela, and she'll, I think, give you a view from the local council perspective, and then I'll join the panel.
Thanks so much, Michael. I'll introduce Gisela now. Gisela is the Nighttime Economy Project Officer at the City of Parramatta. As one of the only 2 metropolitan councils with a dedicated nighttime economy role, Parramatta is further cementing itself as the centre of global Sydney. Gisela is an urban planner with an avid passion for empowering communities. She utilises her skills to bridge and the technical and the personal to elevate the stories of people and places. Prior to joining the council, she worked in consulting and has experience across a wide range of projects in infrastructure and land use planning, policy, strategy, and master planning. So I'll hand over to Gisela now. Thank you.
I'll just share my screen. Can everyone see that? The PowerPoint, that's what I meant to share. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you to the Chamber for having me. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gisela. I'm the Nighttime Economy Project Officer at the City of Parramatta, and I'm here to talk to you about the Central River City after dark. I'd like to begin first by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land and waters that we speak about today, it's the Darug people. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on, the Gadigal and Wangal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the audience today. I'll dive right in. So I'll just begin with a quick snapshot of what the nighttime economy is in Parramatta at the moment. It's the 6th largest nighttime economy in Australia and the 3rd largest in the state, and that's by count of number of venues. There are about 1,300 venues located within the LGA that are counted as part of the core nighttime economy, and those uses are food, entertainment, and drink. As you can see, food is the dominant use in terms of core nighttime economy in the LGA. It comprises about 77% of the sector, followed by entertainment, but still by quite a margin. And lastly, we have drink or licensed venues, which is the smallest part of the sector, about 3%. The nighttime economy in Parramatta grew by about 5.5% between 2019 to 2020, which was greater than Sydney, New South Wales, and also Australia, that rate of growth. It's great to see that kind of sector of Parramatta city culture growing, but that's obviously not to discount that there still was a considerable downturn in employment and sales, likely due to the biggest elephant in the room, COVID-19. I thought I'd just begin with this quick snapshot so that we can kind of start from so we know where we're starting from, so that we can get to where we're going. And where are we going? Well, if I was in Parramatta, I would probably gesture vaguely out the window to the groundbreaking transformation that's underway in the city. Parramatta is undergoing an unprecedented level of development and attracting high value investment from both the public and the private sector. And on the side are just a few of the projects that are going to shape the city for generations to come. And I will sound like a broken record throughout this presentation, referring to the transformation that the city, and I mean the whole LGA, is undergoing. And it's really great that at this point in the journey that we're already talking about all of the different building blocks that make a city great. And that isn't just limited to transport, jobs, housing, and education. It also means culture and things to do, which is where I come in. And that's not to say that the 24-hour economy is exclusive to the CBD. So across the LGA, there are many areas undergoing significant change and will contribute to the growing Parramatta community. So Parramatta is not just the CBD. There are also centres, Harris Park, that Mike shouted out a while ago, also one of my favorite places in Sydney, Epping, Rose Hill, Sydney Olympic Park, Westmead, among others, and they'll all play a role in creating a great city. And it's important that Parramatta's nighttime economy addresses the needs of people and places all over the LGA. And a thriving nighttime economy is really crucial to Parramatta's transformation and making the most out of the level of investment in the city. It's crucial to cementing Parramatta's place within global Sydney. And it's really part of the social, environmental, economic, and cultural glue that stitches the city together and promotes its unique story. And like any great city, Parramatta does have its fair share of issues and opportunities. I've picked only my top 3 of each. This is by no means an exhaustive list. The main issue that I see that we're facing in creating a great night city is the lack of diversity of activities. So as you saw on the first slide, Parramatta's nighttime economy is mostly made up of food establishments, and there are much fewer licensed venues. In 2019, of the dedicated licensed venues in the LGA, there were only 2 that were small bars. And also in 2019, a third of the turnover of nighttime economy came from licensed gaming. And a city can't thrive or buzz in the way that we want it to if there aren't a variety of things to do, not just at night, but also at all times of the day. The second issue is around changing perceptions of Parramatta and kind of moving the dial in terms of its image towards that of a global city. Within that, there's also kind of the issue of addressing perceptions of safety, not just in terms of safety from alcohol-based violence or gender-based violence, but we have this kind of new dimension now of addressing COVID safety and making sure people feel safe and comfortable coming into places where there will be lots of other people. Aside from that, there's also the issue of ensuring that the perceptions and the image of Parramatta that we're developing is still grounded in its unique identity and culture and not just copy-pasted from other places or cities. The last issue that I'll point to today is this, the stuff that really helps to make nighttime activity happen, which is supporting infrastructure. And I mean lighting, public transport, public toilets, but I also mean the infrastructure that helps creatives, artists, performers, musicians create the culture. So I'm talking about like cultural infrastructure. And I'd also certainly be I would be remiss if I didn't mention that COVID-19 has certainly put a huge spanner in the works. So it's put a lot of pressure on the network of local businesses in the area and also all over the country, and has really put a hard stop on any events or activations that we can put on at the moment. It's not all doom and gloom. There are plenty of opportunities that go hand in hand with the issues that we're trying to address. And one of those is the incredibly diverse community in Parramatta and also in the rest of Western Sydney. I do love some fun stats. So here are a few. So here we go. Almost half of the households in the LGA have children. There are over 140 languages spoken in the LGA, and as of this year, a fifth of the population will be under 18. So that's already like an incredible place to start from in terms of thinking of ideas of what we can do to serve the community after dark. And as I said a while ago, we also have to think about the wider Western Sydney community, because we're not just serving those within the confines of the LGA. Again, unprecedented level of investment brings a great opportunity now to lay the groundwork for what a city really needs to thrive at night. And lastly, it's also very exciting that kind of at this point in Parramatta's journey, there's already a recognition of how important the nighttime economy is and how important it's going to be in the future. And that means we have the opportunity to get the foundations right so we can really facilitate the nighttime economies for a great city in a well thought out way. And I really see that as a core part of my role. Ensuring that the environment is right for facilitating nighttime uses, connecting the pieces through strong relationships across industry, government, and community, making sure that infrastructure is there, and also that there's a clear policy environment that can support all of this. But enough about where we're at. What is it that we're doing? So what are we doing to facilitate and accelerate the creation and growth of nighttime hubs? Well, at Council, we do have a Night City framework, which was endorsed in February 2020. That's really the blueprint for what we're trying to accomplish insofar as facilitating a fun and engaging night city, as well as kind of mitigating some of the nasties and risks associated with nighttime activities. So there are 6 key focus areas, which are up on the screen. And I'll drop a link in the chat to the Night City framework, which you can have a read through if you like. So this is the overarching framework for the next few years, but in the next few slides, I'll talk about what we're doing now and what we're really focusing on in the next few months. So as I said earlier, setting up the right environment is really front of mind for me right now, as we can't put on events or activations. I'm focused on preparing, but that doesn't just mean preparing the events calendar. I also mean that we're thinking about the policies and strategies that we need within council to really help facilitate the nighttime activity that we want in the city. So we're developing a late night trading development control plan, which is in line with one of the key focus areas from the Night City framework, planning for a future 24-hour CBD and late trading centers. And so this will be a specific set of controls that are aligned with strategic objectives and can ensure consistent outcomes for late trading premises. I'm also working with the various teams in council responsible for cultural planning and event planning to make sure that we're coordinating our efforts so that we can have great events and activations once lockdown lifts, but also so that the necessary infrastructure, the building blocks that we need to support cultural development for the long term in Parramatta are there. We've also been taking some small steps to diversifying. Earlier this year, we awarded 8 nighttime economy diversification grants to a wide array of artists, venues, and organizations to support projects that will help develop the growth and diversity of the nighttime economy in Parramatta. We haven't announced this yet, but here's a quick preview for you all. The grant recipients are indeed a really diverse cast and crew. So I'll just do like a quick round the world tour of the 8 amazing recipients. So We have Global Cities After Dark, which will be a capacity building and resilience focused program of keynotes, workshops, think tanks, and events co-designed with kind of local nighttime economy leaders. 5 p.m. wake up call is going to be Parramatta's first improvisation workshop. It's a 6-part improv workshop, so watch out for that later this year. Flamenco for everybody is a cultural experience that combines storytelling, video installation, dance, obviously flamenco dance, music, and audience participation, and really aims to democratize access to culture. We also have Abattoir Blues, which is a venue in Sydney Olympic Park. They'll be installing live music infrastructure in their courtyard to enable them to stage more live music and entertainment. The primary goods company is Parramatta's first gin micro distillery, providing tasting events and drinks distilled right in the LGA, which is really exciting. Parramatta Leagues, home of the Eels, will also be utilizing the grant to stage live music events on weekends in their outdoor area, which is called Eels Lane. Nick and Nora's, which is a bar in the CBD, will be putting on themed events on Sunday afternoons to draw people into the CBD on what's generally a quieter trading day. And lastly, Delivart, which will activate an iconic Parramatta location with an immersive cultural experience combining art, food, and performance. So as you can see, there's a real breadth and depth to what these applicants envision the nighttime economy in Parramatta to be. And I'm also very excited for the next round of grants, which we will run later this year. We're also getting the physical environment ready. So I mentioned in the previous slide, the use of the grants to make sure that the venues have the infrastructure to sustain live music and events on a more regular basis. Another one is that last year, council activated Phillip Lane, which is a laneway off Church Street in the CBD. It's to encourage more outdoor dining. It was a really successful pilot that we'll be making permanent. So the other day, council opened up for expressions of interest for creative lighting schemes for Phillip Lane, which will be permanent fixtures to the laneway. And I'll end with this. I just want to reiterate that we are working together with businesses, peak bodies, different levels of government, and also internally. I've learned that it really takes a village to make sure that we can recover as quickly as possible. So we've formed an internal group in council across the different teams from strategy, economic development, place management, marketing, events, etc., to advocate for support for a CBD recovery package similar to the recovery packages for the Sydney and Melbourne CBDs. We're also working together to ensure we're supporting the business community over lockdown through regular communications with the community on the different promotions that businesses are doing, and also the 1,000,001 webinars that small businesses can attend, which can cover topics spanning from grants, disaster payments, to mental health assistance. And that's been really important to keep that connection strong so they feel like we're on this journey with them. We're also thinking about what are the different city experiences we can capture once we'll be able to invite people back into the city, but in a COVID safe way, whether that's through more public space or, using walks so that people are moving. It's all under the umbrella of encouraging people to rediscover different parts of the city. And I'll end just now, but I get asked quite often if it was difficult stepping into this particular role at a time. I joined about 2 months ago, and while there were certainly some things that I hadn't expected to deal with, it's been really motivating to work with people both within council and also outside of council in forums like this, and also with Mike's team, who recognize how important this is to the city, and how the best way forward is really to share the responsibility so that we can hit the ground running when we can. Thank you. Stop sharing.